it's just not, it's not fair. None of it is fair.
We believed that we were in fair dealing with the Ford dealership.
This sales agreement is like a cocktail of booby traps and bad surprises and bad decisions.
What happens when the sales pitch doesn't match the deal? What happens when a dream hinges on that promise? One Winnipeg family found out when their dream turned into a nightmare. We sat down with Tricia and Vern Dano at their Winnipeg home.
We were on a journey of purchasing a new home. The place that we reside here right now was our starting point, our starting home. Our goal was always to move outside of the city.
One thing stood in their way.
One of the issues that we were having was that our vehicle loans were too high, and that made our debt ratio too high.
Tricia Dano thought her dealership, a place where she already had a relationship, could help bring that dream within grasp.
One of the salespersons called me from Birchwood Ford and said, I'm explaining to him, I don't need another vehicle, I'm trying to get a mortgage. This is, like, I can't go into further debt trying to get a mortgage. And he says, you should just consolidate. Consolidate, come in, we'll get you into another vehicle and we'll consolidate your vehicle and you'll have one payment, which will be lower. The bank will like that.
Car sales ads are increasingly appearing on social media, and some people say they're targeting First Nation people specifically. And pushy salesman isn't really a new thing. In fact, it's a common stereotype. So, does car shopping on social media provide a relief from that push to sign on the bottom line? APTN Investigates found these Facebook pages all across Canada, and many offer Canada-wide delivery.
It's called Affinity Marketing. And it's a sales technique whereby the salesman or retailer claim to have connections or an affinity to certain organizations or groups of people.
What's your name?
Stanley Dwowski.
Polish, eh? What a coincidence. Rudy Polanski, how are you? Hey, I like that watch, Stan. Great shoes. Love them.
Thanks.
So, Stan, you want to buy this Buick Centurion, huh? Good choice. Smart man, you got good taste.
So shopping for vehicles on social media may seem like a reprieve from having someone push you to sign on the bottom line. But is this fundamental change in the marketplace creating a new problem? It's something the Danos encountered.
He was trying to impress me by saying he knew somebody in Seguin. It was kind of like you all know each other type of thing, right? And he mispronounced Fontaine and called them Fountain.
But the Facebook pages aren't just the salesperson's claim of an Indigenous connection. Some companies create the impression of Indigenous ownership. George Eny is with the Automobile Protection Association, or APA, based in Montreal. The APA has done consumer advocacy in the automobile industry for almost 50 years.
Well, at its best, affinity marketing means a community of people are entitled to either a lower price or access to maybe preferred level of service because they are a known group. What you're calling affinity marketing is something else. It's basically what I see is appropriation, perhaps, of either the identity or some kind of symbols that would suggest that maybe the person providing the service belongs to a particular community, but in fact it's plain old subprime car retailing.
What is subprime retailing? Have you ever seen those ads for 0% financing? Well, some people don't qualify for those loans. So the major banks will still lend, but often at a higher interest rate than advertised. Some say this is essential for many consumers with damaged credit. And well, a customer is a customer, so many car retailers and salespersons target these higher risk customers. Some companies have entire business plans based on reaching out to those high risk consumers. Scrolling through many of the pages, they show smiling faces and happy customers. Many are clearly Indigenous. But some of these pages don't go anywhere. Nothing beyond a phone number. others were found to be associated with well-known dealerships that are definitely not Indigenous owned. We found one called Aboriginal Auto, which is actually Birchwood Ford.
In regards to your question about Aboriginal Auto, it is a business name we have used for over 15 years for marketing purposes.
And another, called Big Chief Motors, is located at Gauthier Chrysler, but is a separate entity focusing on subprime retailing. APTN Investigates spoke to the manager, Nick Aurora, who told us he is Indian, but not First Nations. He said his business is not Affinity Marketing, and the name was inspired by the beef jerky brand. Birchwood and Gauthier are large and reputable dealerships in Winnipeg. An APTN Investigates hidden camera investigation went to Aboriginal Auto.
I don't think this is the right spot. I'm looking for Aboriginal Auto.
No, you're in the right.
The Danos didn't buy from the Aboriginal Auto division of Birchwood, but they had a relationship with Birchwood, having bought at least 4 vehicles there previously. APTN Investigates spoke with this helpful gentleman.
I just had a few questions. Yeah, you call yourself Aboriginal Auto. Is there Indigenous people working here too, or?
3 staff members were identified as Métis. 1 wasn't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We cater to all the northern communities.
I'll probably drop back.
Surprisingly, rather than look at vehicles, the first thing this salesperson wanted me to do was fill out a credit application. But I declined and proceeded to another dealership.
Looking for Big Chief Motors. Is this it, or?
Somebody in particular?
Again, I was immediately brought to the credit desk.
I kind of wanted to look at vehicles before I put in a credit app.
Okay, well, you know what? Here's the thing.
Okay.
We could do that.
Yeah.
But what if your credit comes back where I know you want a truck,
Mhm.
but we should be looking at this truck. That's how, this is what I always kind of tell people.
Yeah.
We pre-approve for mortgages, right?
Right.
So we know, hey, well, you can spend $200,000 instead of
Yeah.
looking at $500,000 house.
Right.
Is this normal? Getting the credit application first? For telephone and social media marketers, it seems so.
That's at, that'll be at that gas bar, right? Down that little gravel road?
We join Dan Roulette as he prepares to deliver a car to Peguis First Nation. Roulette is an Ojibwe man and a veteran car salesman, and he finds the credit app to be an essential first step.
Well, for what I do, yes. Because unfortunately, a lot of the people that I deal with have credit issues. When they do a credit application beforehand, then we send in for a pre-approval, at which time the bank will say, well, they're approved for this kind of payment or this amount of money. Nice to meet you. You come with me, I'll show you a little bit about the vehicle.
Roulette often delivers vehicles to his customers personally. However, Dano didn't need the service Roulette offers. She just went to her dealership. But after going to a car lot, she wondered if she really needed a new truck. She ultimately kept looking forward.
I did feel pressure, but I was thinking about the bigger picture with being pre-approved for my dream home.
She went in, and she felt they made their expectations clear.
I expressed over and over and over again how important it was that it was a consolidation loan, that the vehicles were going to be just one payment and that's it, and it was going to be a lower payment.
But still, Dano was reflecting on the application process and something felt off. It would be a while before she realized the deal was about to turn sour. Shortly afterwards, news arrived and it seemed good.
And a couple of days later, I get a call from the finance person. And he said, hey, Tricia, we heard back from the bank and they said, yeah, they want to approve you for your vehicle.
With the hurdle of refinancing out of the way, the Danos were ready to buy their new home. Or were they? Coming up, we find out the deal was anything but what they expected.
Anything is better than nothing because we're screwed.
She kept telling me, take your Facebook posts down before we'll even talk about resolution.
This was a terrible deal for the buyer.
I was excited, like this was happening. I'm going to get my house. I called the people that we were buying the house from, and I was like, we'll be able to finish this probably in the next week or so.
The Danos believed they had the numbers they needed for the mortgage. They were just waiting on documents.
Everything was good. We just needed the buyout.
Then, Ford Credit started calling for something the Danos thought was part of the deal: Vern's truck payments.
So we're telling Ford Credit to talk to Birchwood Ford, but because of the privacy issues or privacy laws, they can't talk to one another. So we're stuck in the middle trying to figure out how this is working. In the meantime, the things were so crazy and hectic with work and just life, and it just, time was passing by, but we're still getting ready to move.
They were so close to moving. Their house was about to be listed.
We were getting all of the unnecessary things out of the house and putting it into storage so that we could stage it for selling. And that was just 3 days before.
Then Vern gets a call.
I'm on the road heading out to do some work up north. I get Ford Credit calling me saying, yeah, I missed 3 payments. And I go, what? So I pull over the side of the road and I'm in a panic and I start going through everything with them. No, nothing's been sent. You need to go and talk to them. So I immediately, in a panic, told my wife.
So he calls Tricia.
My husband is calling me and he's saying, I'm getting these phone calls and they're threatening to take me to court, and they're threatening to send collection officers after us. And I was like, what is happening? So I phone Birchwood Ford again.
Their finance manager drops a bombshell.
He says, yeah, I didn't know about a mortgage. I didn't know anything about that. I didn't know you were trying to buy a house. I didn't know. It was so cold and so shocking.
So basically, the Danos were on the hook for the new truck and the old truck. In addition, they had to carry the balance of the trade-in into this new loan. We'll go into more details about that shortly. But next, Tricia contacted the general manager of Birchwood, first by email, then by phone.
She hung up on me twice in a conversation.
Dano posted about it on social media, something the dealership manager did not like.
This went on for weeks, months. She kept telling me, take your Facebook posts down before we'll even talk about resolution. And I said, you can't tell me to do that. It has nothing to do with resolution.
It hit Tricia. They were now saddled with 2 payments.
There's no way that the bank is going to approve our mortgage. There's no way.
So you called the bank?
I called the bank, I think the next day. And when I told him what happened, he kind of just went silent. He had this like kind of noise, and he said, there's no way that we can pre-approve you. Yeah, it's nice. I'm not complaining about the truck. I think if we got exactly what we asked for, then I wouldn't mind it. I kind of feel resentful towards it in some way, even though it had really nothing to do with the truck. But I'm not regretting choosing the truck, that's for sure. Just regretting dealing with Birchwood Ford.
What happened? Did they say one thing but do another? APTN Investigates reached out to Birchwood. They declined to speak on camera, but offered an emailed statement.
At the time of this particular transaction, the customers did express a concern. To resolve the matter to their satisfaction, we presented them with some options, one being the full cancellation of the contract, which would include the return of the vehicle and a complete refund. The customers opted for a different option, which they say was acceptable to them.
The Danos say a refund was offered, but they would have to pay back the balance owing after the trade-in and a cashback amount, which had already been spent.
She sent me an email once that said, I'll take the truck back. And I knew it wasn't going to be that easy because my experience with her has been pretty not good the whole time. But we would have had to pay $21,000 to get out of it, which we didn't have. Obviously, we didn't have it.
Dano says they didn't understand the contract. They felt the salesperson didn't listen to them.
We didn't know what was happening. He was telling us what was happening. It wasn't that we understood. It was, this is what you're getting, and that's it.
We asked Georgini of the APA to examine the sales contract. He's a go-to expert in car sales.
This was a terrible deal for the buyer.
As far as Eni is concerned, when it comes to carrying over vehicle balances, don't do it.
So they take back your vehicle, but the outstanding payment, that's called the upside down consumer. That person then has that added to the price of their next vehicle.
One or the other.
Even though they bought a brand new truck, they were still sold an aftermarket warranty.
She bought a mechanical extended warranty. They didn't sell her the Ford plan. That would be the best for a Ford pickup because it would be accepted at every Ford dealer across the country and it's more complete. They sold her an aftermarket plan instead. Usually the coverage is much more limited.
It shows on here there's nothing with
And then there were the extras.
But when
The buyer was sold a whole bunch of extra, very profitable dealer products. They offered her up to 10 of them. She only took about half, but that was probably 4 or 5 too many. So they sold her overpriced anti-theft etching and tire warranty products, nitrogen in her tires. Never take nitrogen in your tires from a car dealer. You can get it for free or for $5 a tire at many retailers. They sold her rust proofing for $1,600 and some dollars. Again, very overpriced, and the F-150 is aluminum, so it's doubtful that rust proofing developed for steel vehicles would even do the trick.
Oh, that's so upsetting.
We went over some of Eni's comments with Dano.
I'm just kind of shocked. Yeah, that's not... I don't know how anybody can do that and get away with it. That's the part that's driving me crazy, is that they got away with it. And they wouldn't even accept any blame. They wouldn't say, yeah, we messed up. We got to change our policies. Nothing. They didn't even really apologize.
Consolidation can sound great. For the Danos, their salesperson made it sound easy. But for many people trying to shore up their financial situation, they fall into a trap.
For a certain percentage of consumers, the kind of advertising that promises to put you behind the wheel of a new vehicle is addictive. It's really hard to pass on. And you're vulnerable in that case, unfortunately. And there should be protections.
What types of protections are there for car buyers? In some instances, Eni feels the aggressive tactics by many in the industry may be more than simply unfair.
I'm unhappy to tell you that the people who should be protecting you are not. That there are either gaps in the laws on the books, or the laws on the books, when they should be used or could be used creatively, you can't get out when you owe $15,000 on your current vehicle, more than the value of the vehicle. You cannot get out with a lower deal.
The Danos still live in their Winnipeg home. They're on the hook for 2 truck payments. For the misunderstanding, Birchwood offered a cash settlement. They took it.
Here's a check, but let me humiliate you before you take it. That was what happened. In desperation, and somebody that has been through hell and back, dealing with it, and then having to go in and be humiliated, and here's a check, but you have to tell all your friends that they can't say anything bad about Birchwood Ford because, you know, that makes us look bad, and that's what matters the most.
I took the remedy because we needed something. Anything is better than nothing because we're screwed.
They still felt it was important to share a story they feel may be very familiar to many Indigenous people.
don't screw us over. Don't shaft us. We are hardworking people and we deserve good quality vehicles, but we don't need to be screwed over all the time. And that's what happens to a lot of our people by these dealerships, because we're just happy to get a vehicle. We'll take any kind of percentage instead of them working with us and giving us the lowest deals. So I'm hoping there'll be other dealers that will step up and say, hey, we'll take care of you guys. Come over here, you're safe. That's what I'd like to hear. That'd be nice to hear, actually. So
It's appalling. It should not be allowed. And it is certainly an industry fault in Manitoba, but there's also government fault as well. They need to be more aggressive and look into this. These contracts need to be removed. The industry is able to do more voluntarily. We've seen it before in other provinces. If they won't do it voluntarily, it's called legislation. And you charge people, or you get rulings that say that these agreements are void.
Birchwood had this statement in their emailed response.
Our goal is to have complete customer satisfaction and to act in an ethical and transparent manner.
Everywhere in Canada is different when it comes to automobile sales regulations and standards. In fact, you have to file a complaint if you feel you've been treated unfairly in every province.
As for Affinity Marketing, Eni suggests not relying on a brand name.
Very obviously, from what we can see, when we visit sites like Big Chief or a First Nations or something, they are trying to look like your friend and a member perhaps related to your community. But that should give you no solace. You're not going to get a better deal.
Season 10 of Investigates continues next week.
They have everything well out there. While in the isolated reserve, you don't have much. Like the food out there is less expensive, while food here is like so expensive. Yeah, and it's just how they have everything out there, and while we here don't have much stuff to go on.
Is there any running water to the house?
It was, but the pipe freeze when break, not working anymore. No running water.
If a community or family, a child doesn't have clean drinking water, as well as to wash in, then it really affects the community's ability to move forward.
What we're seeing with healthcare issues is I really see that this is really an injustice issue that we're just seeing through healthcare lens.